Hey guys, Argent here. With a character profile of Skyler White. Yeah, we're moving on to Breaking Bad characters. That's the way I roll, dog. Anyway, so Skyler White. Probably one of the most disliked characters in TV show history. Um, there was kind of a cottage industry back when Breaking Bad was still on in defending Skyler and calling everyone sexist and racist and xenophobic and homophobic for disliking her. Well, more just sexist, because people would point out correctly that people like Walt and people like Jesse and people like Gus, despite the fact that they do much worse stuff, whereas Skyler doesn't. I don't think she actually kills anyone in the series, and yet she receives far more hatred than any of the other characters. And they're like, well, Walt kills people, so why don't people hate him? Why does everyone hate Skyler? People who don't like Skyler and like Walt are sociopaths. Well, at face value, this may seem like a legitimate argument, and I did think about this at great length. I think ultimately what you have to keep in mind is people dislike Skyler because there's nothing really to like about her. Um, there's nothing really like positive about her character. She's bitchy, self-absorbed, unaffectionate to her husband, whiny, greedy, petty, jealous, just in general a completely unlikable person. Furthermore, she kind of reflects the cuck nature of a lot of men in the post modern era. Men who basically are no longer masters of their domain, who no longer have any authority to their family, and just bow to whatever their wife does. It's very clear who wears the pants in this relationship. Skyler seems to never give Walt sex. In the first couple episodes, it seems like she spends all of his money. Even when he's working two jobs, she still makes him do like household chores, like she makes him paint the room and stuff like that. And even though he's basically working like 80 hours a week to try and feed his family, she just basically whines and complains and is never satisfied because he's never home. And yeah, so she basically doesn't really contribute much to him. She gave him a son who, despite having what is it, cerebral palsy, is pretty functional and really doesn't need that much taken care of. But no, she kind of just stays home and sits around all day and writes her crappy books and spends Walt's money and complains about how bad her life is. And there's just nothing really like likable about her. I guess she kind of likes her son. She's kind of nice to him, and that's really it. There's nothing really like extraordinary about her. There's not anything really kind of mundane about her character that's good. Everything positive you have to say about Skylar as a character is that, oh well, she doesn't kill anyone, she doesn't torture anyone, she doesn't have an well, she does actually have an affair with Walt. On Walt, she doesn't kill him in her sleep. She didn't abort Walt Jr. And these are kind of like the things we're supposed to praise her for. Basically doing what a normal person is supposed to do, and barely even doing that. Given her relative failure, in my opinion, of being a decent wife for Walt. So yeah, like what can you say? There's nothing really positive to say about her. There's just fewer negatives. On the other hand, we have characters like Walter White, who is a genius, who's cunning, who's tough, who's clever, who comes up with schemes like the bomb that kills Gus. He tries to start his own like drug empire at least twice. Once in the with Jesse, the second time with Uncle Jack and Declan. He tries to do stuff like that. He comes up with like chemical compounds. He's kind of sympathetic. He kind of represents the everyman He kind of represents, and I'll talk about this more in his the state of kind of what being a postmodern white man is like. So people can emphasize with him. He's the kind of like the guy who you relate to, and who you kind of cheer on because he's basically engaging in a power and revenge fantasy. Skyler is kind of what brings this series back to reality. She's kind of the bitchy wife who's ruined her life. She's the mother figure who she's that Swipple who reported you for eating at your desk and you got fired. She's just kind of indicative of every just unbearable mother, wife, or manager figure that has been created since the advent, particularly of more recent feminism and social justice warrior type thing. Is any man or woman for that matter really like that? No, no one likes that. The fact that they pretend to like that is solely due to political concerns, not because anyone finds it charming or endearing. Men in general like real women. They don't really like women like Skylar. I guess I'll give her credit. She's not fat. She didn't tattoo or mutilate herself, so I guess that's it. But she just is. She's just utterly unlikable. I guess is the way I would describe Skylar. There's nothing you can point to. Like you can say, well, Walt is a bad guy, but he has these like brilliant plans. Like they're gonna steal the methylene off of the train. He goes in and risks his life to save Jesse. Just stuff like that happens. Walt is a great man. Gus is a great man, for good and for evil. They have a lot of admirable traits about them. They're a bit like the devil, as Jesse would put it. The devil has a lot of very admirable good qualities. He's cunning. He's attractive. He's charismatic. He's a good speaker. He's good at rhetoric. He's good at understanding people. He's powerful. He can lead. I mean, these are all good things. They're put to a bad purpose, but you have to admire the devil's abilities and you have to respect them. Skylar isn't that. She's just kind of a petty character. She's just kind of the average petty person who makes her life a living hell. In a way, at least in a first world country, guys like Gus, generally speaking, don't in a first world country make your life a living hell. They're kind of these remote criminal overlords who operate in an underclass that few people see. Skylar's the real deal, though. She's kind of the average source of misery. I know in my family there are a lot of the men have married women like her, and they've destroyed their lives. They've spent all their money. They've had affairs with their bosses or contractors. They've taken the children, etc. Overall, just Walt is just much more likable. Walt's a lot more complicated. Skylar is very one-dimensional. Um, Walt is much more kind of complicated. I mean, even Jesse, I just find is a lot easier to relate to. Skylar is just kind of a bitch. I don't really know what else to say about it. There's nothing really likable, interesting about it. She does, I think, very well describe how a lot of men. Does that make her a bad character, though? I just like to say that. No, I think she's a good character because I think she's very realistic, and I think that's to some extent why people hate her, and to some extent why Breaking Bad's such a good show because it is so reflective of reality. Walter White really his life represents what the average kind of white guy's life is like, and Skylar kind of represents what to a lot of men their wives are like, and it kind of really shows just how cucked Walt is. She wears the pants. She just dominates him in their marriage, and she won't even give him sex. So he's just frustrated in every way possible, and he gets no emotional support from her. And she's just obsessed with stuff like status signaling and her crappy poems and stuff, and complaining about how she's not rich, um, etc. So that's my view of Skylar. I think she's a good character. I don't like her. I think I found her incredibly abrasive. Probably the two most unwatchable scenes in Breaking Bad are the scene with the pillow, where they pass the pillow around, and the scene where she does the happy birthday dance. There's some other scenes that are up there. Most of them involve Skyler. The one where she's like, "No, Walt, I'm not gonna let you have sex with me for your comfort." Well, you're his wife. That's kind of like what you're supposed to do. Like, I bet she expects like Walt to give her a foot rub or something, or a back rub if she feels bad. Well, to men, and I don't buy that women are as asexual as the feminists would want us to believe. To men, that's kind of a way to release tension. It's a way to remove stress. It's a way to just kind of relax and reset your emotional clock. But no, because that's rape. Trying to initiate sex with your wife is rape. You have to wait for her to initiate it, or else you're just an evil man. So that's Skyler White. This is Argent Templar signing out.